Hey everyone, welcome back to the Skylila Experience. Today we have another episode with a high-performing entrepreneur, Nishal Kumar, who is the founder and CEO of No Days Wasted, as well as was in BC Biz 30 Under 30. Hey Nishal, how are you?
I'm good, Sky. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. I think that's amazing, by the way. Congrats on 30 Under 30. That's a huge accomplishment.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's good group that BC sort of recognizes every year. I think there's a lot of people doing cool, creative things
Yeah.
in Canada and especially in BC. One of the best places to start a business. So couldn't be more grateful for that honor.
Yeah, amazing. So I've actually told a few people over in London about No Days Wasted. Somebody the other day asked me, they said, Sky, can you manifest away a hangover? And I said, well, I don't think you could do that. But actually, I know this guy who started a company who basically helps with that type of thing. So I'll let you speak to it, but can you elaborate? What is No Days Wasted and how does it help?
Yeah, well, funny enough, we're actually distributed in the UK a bit. So like we ship over there, and then we have a distribution partner called Zap. They do like 20-minute delivery all over London. You can order it off there too. So,
Okay,
but
I'll tell him. Thanks.
yeah, I'm sure they'll love that. But essentially, No Days Wasted came to be as a personal science experiment. So initially, out of the gate, this was just over 6 years ago. I would go out, have a few drinks in the evening, and not feel my best the next day. And it's not even like I was binging or anything of that sort. I was just having a couple.
Mhm.
And for me, it was really the nausea and a bit of the brain fog that came with it. So I'd been listening to other people's remedies, like do this, eat greasy food the next day,
Yeah.
take a bunch of B vitamins, hammer down some Advil or Tylenol and Gatorade and all that. But nothing really, everything was sort of reactive rather than a proactive solution.
Right.
And also, the damage was already done. So I actually have a background in science and I said, well, why don't I look into this a little bit more? And for other problems I was encountering in my life, I was kind of looking up the research behind it, and I decided to do that for alcohol's pathway ultimately, and learn that the issue is the buildup of alcohol's toxic byproduct, and that's the main cause of that awful next day. So something called acetaldehyde, that's 80% of the problem. And how do you break that down before your next morning? That's essentially what the problem to solve was, and came across some really great herbal plant-based ingredients that act as what you call cofactors for your liver enzymes, so like a support system for your liver enzymes
Mhm.
to get them to work better. And yeah, that's how all good things start. I guess you solve the problem for yourself and decide to share it with the world. So
Yeah, thank you. That's nice to know it's a science-based, basically proactive hangover cure. Um,
well, we don't like to use the hangover messaging as much. More so,
no,
we lean into balance. So it's all about feeling your best and achieving balance. And No Days Wasted obviously is a play on words with having a couple drinks, but it's
right.
more so a mantra around how we like to live our lives. And, personally, I'm a high performer. I like to get up early and exercise. I like to feel my best all the time. If I want downtime and rest, it's on my own terms, not because I'm not feeling well.
Right.
Right. So, really being conscious of that. Also, we know what alcohol does, and how it's a toxin, and how it's broken down into something even more poisonous um, than itself. And ultimately, you just want to push people, in the right direction. If they decide to have a few drinks, then here's a solution to help you feel your best. Um, but really not trying to push that binge messaging.
Right. Right.
And on top of that, we have a couple other products. So an electrolyte drink mixed with immune support that's good for hydration daily, and then a sleep product we actually launched in the US as well. So it's a magnesium based sleep product that helps you achieve a deeper, more restful night of sleep.
Okay, so really health-based products now, but I guess it started with that one, but now it's just overall nothing, not necessarily to do with if you've had a drink that night or if you're planning on it. It's just stay healthy, take care of your
Yeah,
body.
we're focusing on a few key areas. So recovery, um, hydration, immune support, and sleep. And then we'll have something more with a nutritional focus and sort of daily nutrition that we'll be launching into the future. But we're trying, No Days Wasted is life is about experiences, and that's what we're here for. So let's feel our best and achieve balance. And so all of that fits under our umbrella of No Days Wasted.
Okay, I love that. Thank you. Oh, so many questions. On that balance, want to get into a little bit of your lifestyle. How do you maintain balance in your lifestyle? Like you're, starting a business, running a business. I'm sure you have a ton of other projects going on, your health, your fitness. What does your life look like and how do you balance and juggle everything?
Yeah, I think that balance means something different to everyone. So, my life might not be exactly like yours or someone else's, but for me, uh, well, exercise is a must, and if I'm not exercising like 5 or 6 times a week, it's it's not great, and I'm doing something wrong. So that's always at the top of mind. I want to be able to get into the gym, get on the basketball court, get a sweat in, get my heart rate pumping, uh, and really exert myself, because that's how I feel my best mentally, and
Mhm.
that's how you have the mental clarity to actually excel in the work that you do. So for me, a big part of it is like, I also have a team of 6 people, and being able to delegate the tasks that, um, I used to be sort of a solo entrepreneur when I started. And over the years, I've added more team members, and there's still certain things that only I can do, but I'm trying to get my team in a position where I'm delegating a bit more, and making sure that they're knocking these things out of the park, because the list keeps growing. So if I was doing everything myself, I wouldn't have that balance.
Yeah.
So really, like, finding ensuring that your non-negotiables are met with exercise, also diets hypercritical. I actually don't eat lunch
Okay.
because it keeps me focused and hungry for to complete my tasks and the stuff I need to do. I actually just have a bit of bone broth and an apple or a banana, and maybe some nuts or a granola bar, but I keep it really light until dinner time.
Do you eat? I was actually just talking about that earlier as well because I didn't eat till maybe, I don't know, 4 p.m. today. And I was just saying as well, I find I have more energy because food makes me a bit tired. So if I can just prolong that, eat a bit later. Do you eat breakfast though? What does the
Always. Yeah,
diet look like?
yeah, yeah. I really, for me, having something in my stomach in the morning is really important. Some people like to do the intermittent fasting. Um, I think that's good. But for me personally, it doesn't work. I'd rather get that fuel in me to start the day. So like a small bowl of oats, piece of fruit kind of thing, and
Mhm.
then a black coffee is usually what I do in the morning. Um, and if I'm working from home, I'll have a few like boiled eggs with it. But this morning I'm at the office, so we do 3 days a week in the office, 2 days at home. So I did, my small bowl of oats, black coffee, and a banana, and that got me rolling. And then yeah, that's the big thing. Like, having food, especially a large meal that's carb heavy or like very complex, maybe a lot of dense protein and carbs, you're gonna your gut needs a lot of the blood that would go to your head. So
Mhm.
you're redirecting blood to your gut, and in turn you're going to get tired because you need to digest. So it's no coincidence there.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. So, what time would you say you wake up? What is it, if you were to break it down for someone, okay, you wake up at this time, eat at this time, gym, work, what's that 15-hour day look like for you?
Yeah, usually up by like 6:30. Usually, the alarm set for 6:30, but oftentimes I wake up like 10 to 12 minutes before. That's just how it goes. I think that circadian rhythm is it couldn't be more true, and your body's trained. Uh, get up, get rolling. Depending on what my workload looks like for that day, I'll about 40% of the time I'll work out in the morning. The remaining 60% is evening. So I would try and just get up and go right to the gym, fill up a water bottle full of electrolytes.
Mhm.
We have our own electrolytes. I made them for myself as
Yeah,
well.
fair.
And that's the fuel to start the day. Crush the workout, and then be sort of at my computer at my desk by 8:30.
Mhm.
If I'm not working out in the morning, today I was at my desk by 7:15. So it totally depends what I sort of have on my plate.
Right.
I think the interesting thing is, like, you know, there's always more work to do. And the next day will will come as well. So just being really hyper focused on prioritization and just making sure, hey, if we have deadlines to meet, let's get those things done. If other people are involved in these projects, let's make sure we get it off our plate onto theirs.
Mhm.
All that stuff is hypercritical, and timing, because if you're not doing that, there's a lot of time wasted, a lot of days wasted, no pun intended. But
Totally.
yeah, and then so just rolling through the day, I try to avoid meetings until actually the afternoon,
Mhm.
because a lot of the high productivity work happens, and like really intense brain power focused work happens between like 7 and 11 a.m. So
Mhm.
all the stuff that's like I need to get down and knock out,
Yeah.
this paperwork, or read through an agreement, or do all sorts, things that are
Yeah.
really require a significant amount of attention. That first 4 hours of the day is critical, and then I avoid big meetings. So with my team, we do something called the Blitz. It's like a 15-minute
Mm.
boom. Tell me what you're working on. Tell me what's happening. What's what once a week, usually on Tuesdays, and how can I help you? And maybe what else do I have to give you? Like where are we at?
Mhm.
And the intention is to be very deliberate. Um, you know, kind of skip the small talk, more so like, hey, we're getting things done, and it's truly a blitz. Let's power through this quickly.
Yeah.
And if there's areas we need to focus on, we use a couple more minutes for that. Um, if there's a bigger project we need and more time we need, we can extend it a little bit, if we can work through it in that session and doesn't overlap, or we'll just schedule some time on an afternoon somewhere during the week
Yeah.
to be able to knock things out. But personally, I lose steam around like 4 o'clock,
Mhm.
4:30. So I'll on the days that I don't work out in the morning, that's when I usually like to go get a workout in the afternoon,
Okay.
and then dinner by like around 6:37. I love to cook, so that's kind of how it looks.
That's good.
Um, and then yeah, sometimes we work with suppliers overseas, so evenings will require some work, like box manufacturers, different manufacturers, for hard goods, packaging and stuff like that. They'll be overseas, so there'll be evening work required then. But I like to find balance. I like to cook. I like to, you know, be entertained. I like to exercise and do all the things, because if you're just working, um, you're not really living. And our brand is all about living. And I made all
Yeah.
these things for myself. So the point is, like, if
Support.
I wasn't in sort of embodying the message I'm pushing, then it wouldn't really fly.
Yeah, it wouldn't be your brand. Well, you're your brand, so it makes sense. How do you maintain this productivity? Because I see you travel quite a bit. How do you maintain all of that?
Yeah, I think, and I was bad at it before, but like traveling, like it's so easy to eat poorly and not exercise. And you can almost like shrug it off as an excuse, like, oh, I'm traveling,
Yeah.
whatever, these are the times. But if you're deliberate in finding ways to get into a gym, even if it's like a quick session, a 45-minute, just, you
Mhm.
know, go hard for 30, 45 minutes, and get that burn going. It's really important. And also eating wise, I like really have dialed that back, avoiding like fried, unhealthy foods on the road. It's
Smart.
okay to have something here and there, but you don't want it to become your diet while you're traveling.
Yes.
Um, because that'll throw you off a lot. And yeah, so really consistency around exercise and diet really helps. And then also I have a sort of like, whenever I go on a plane, this happens to me without fail. I'll like sit down in my seat, I'll fall asleep for like 20 to 40 minutes, depending
Yeah.
on sort of the day. And then by the time I wake up, we're in the air, and I'll pull out my laptop and just start doing some work. They come around with a coffee, and I'll hydrate and have a coffee, and then cruise through the flight and do some work, and then land pretty fired up for whatever it is we're doing in that given city. So
Great. So you're just as productive. It doesn't
yeah,
take.
you know what? It's interesting. I actually feel very inspired traveling. So sometimes the productivity can be higher, um, because you're doing a lot of things, kind of shaking hands, kissing babies, meeting people, and building connections when you're on the road. Or it could be a sales oriented trip where you're directly selling, or you're demoing in stores or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
Um, but like if you're only allotted a certain amount of time, you can find a way to get those tasks done in that period of time.
Yes.
So sometimes the efficiency increases when you travel just because you have less time.
Yeah, they said, or I forget where I heard it once, but it said the day before someone goes on vacation is the most productive day somebody has. Like if they could have that day every day, you'd be so productive because you get everything done.
That's so true. I mean, yeah, and they say, if you have 6 hours, you'll get it done in six. If you have three, you'll get it done in three. So
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for that. And thanks for sharing your morning with me. I know it is precious hours, same for myself as well. How, um, what was I going to say? So with your social life, do you have much of a social life? Has it shifted from when you first started the company to now? Did you have to isolate for a while? How did it look? How has that journey been of like true balance in that said from the beginning of the company to now?
yeah, I think the thing for me is like the social life is part of the reason this company was started. So um, I've always been very deliberate in making sure that I balance and have a social life because uh, people are everything. And that's why we all do everything that we do is connection with others and spending quality time and laughing and experiencing it all. So I do say no a lot more frequently now. And as the past kind of 6 years have gone by, my circles have gotten tighter and I'm a lot more deliberate with my time. So, when I was in my mid 20s, I was making time for different acquaintances and people that were constantly asking something of me, and now I don't make time for those people
Right.
just because it's maybe wasn't a true connection, right? Where a friendship or a social side of things should be, if it's a friendship, there should be an equal exchange of energy and
Mhm.
give and take, right? That's what makes it special, right? So, and then whether it be like networking, social in that regard, I don't like to go to networking specific events. I like to go to events where maybe I can provide some value for someone. So I've done some stuff at UBC recently
Mhm.
where I've done some mentorship for current undergraduate students in the Faculty of Science. And, um, you spend an hour there and it's like these quick blitz, like 15 minutes at each table.
Yeah.
And you've talked to 50 students and you've shared a bit of your journey and helped giving them a bit of clarity or maybe answered some of their questions or given the clarity into like what they could do with their life. Because a lot of them are like very, oh my God, I have this degree. There's no jobs. What do I do? It's like, okay, well, I have a degree in geophysics and commerce. I'm not doing anything with respect to geophysics, but it did teach me how to think and how to build how to problem solve and get here. So a lot of times these kids think that's their end all and be all, and it couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
It's just, yeah, it's part of your journey, but you could end up doing something completely different. So
Right. Okay. Thank you. It's so true. Oh, it changes so much. But I do think every piece is a puzzle piece to wherever you're going. It's all a stepping stone, and who knows how it's working together, but eventually you'll use that knowledge. So, oh, sorry. So I know you kind of went over what you say no to now, but what do you weigh out when you're when you're considering saying no to something? Like, is it the mutual exchange for business related things too? What are you considering in your mind?
yeah, that's a good point. So I'll start on kind of like the social, like more social, like friendship side of things. It's yeah, the mutual relationship and respect of time and energy and effort and friendship for sure. Uh, I mean, you always have to be a little opportunistic with some things. It's like, okay, well, if you're in the sense like, do you need to be there for maybe it's a 3 hour affair, right? And they're saying come for this. Well, maybe you show face, you show up for half an hour and you leave because that's all the time you have, but you want to be present and you want to engage. So you be very deliberate when you're there, making sure you're meeting the important people, having the right conversations and not sort of wasting time more or less, leave people wanting more.
Mhm.
If you're the last person at the bar and you're shutting down the bar, I mean you probably have nowhere better to be, right?
Yeah.
So and that's more an analogy because obviously it could be like in a 7 to 10 event, but if
Mhm.
you show up from 8 to 8:30 or 8 to 8:45 at a 7 to 10 event, then you're there for the meat of it. You've probably accomplished a lot of what you wanted to accomplish, and you provided some supply, but also that scarcity
Mhm.
where your time is valuable. So and you built some connections, right? So maybe there's an opportunity for a follow up and to build further on that. So I think when you say no, you can also say like you can say yes, but let's dial it back, right?
Yeah.
Um, so
No,
yeah,
thank you. I was just listening to a book, time wise, it's kind of all about everything you're honestly saying right now of meetings and just productivity and efficiency with your time. But what you're saying no to, like by saying no, what are you also saying yes to? Like if it's you're saying no to a Friday night out, you're saying yes to a cozy night at home where you're reading your book. So considering, I feel like when you're saying these things, when you're going for your half an hour, you're saying yes to having a more productive day at work the next day or something like that.
100%. And I'm like, I really need sleep. I don't know about you, but I really need a decent amount. I'd say 6 is like my minimum to
Yeah,
feel good. So 6 hours, 7.5 is ideal.
yeah,
So if there's something that's going to take too much, like even if it's a Friday night, when in my mid 20s, I was like, oh, I'll stay out till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And now I'm like, no, like I'll leave whatever it is by 12:30 on a Friday night, right? Because you're like, well, I irrespective of the drinking part, it's more like no, I don't want to throw my circadian rhythm off, and I want to still get some sleep. And I've always had a hard time like really sleeping in.
mm,
So if I'm home at 3, I'm still gonna wake up at 6 or 7,
right.
and then you're pretty banged up going into the next day. You're pretty exhausted, right?
Mhm, mhm. Oh, thank you. Okay, so what would be some mistakes that you've overcome throughout the years or things you would have done differently now looking back, if any?
Honestly, I think well, first of all, mistakes are unavoidable, and that's the fun part about being a human being. Like the imperfection of us all is what makes us unique and gives us our identity. But when it comes to like in business and all that, I make tons of mistakes every day. It's just a matter of um, having sort of like we run with this approach of good now is better than perfect later for certain things.
Mm,
Because if you deliberate too much on something, um, over analysis kind of can lead to some paralysis and you're not getting the outcome. And most of the time, things are iterative anyways. So let's get something good out and get feedback and iterate and build on top of it. It's kind of analogous and in line with sort of the scientific process. Like you have to have a hypothesis and put it out there, and then um, and build an experiment right around it, and then adjust accordingly. So I think the big thing is like, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
mm.
I don't know, I know I didn't answer your question of like what my mistakes were, but don't be
That's
afraid to
great.
make them
Sure.
because they're gonna happen, right? It just be really nimble and be able to, you know, be ready to fix those mistakes and iterate.
Mhm.
So for us, I mean, we've had mistakes with packaging where something was printed completely wrong and I thought it was the end of the world, but obviously we fixed it the next time, or we found a way to like kind of put a label over it, and maybe it didn't look the best, but it served our purpose for that small period of time. um and yeah, I mean, there's countless mistakes, to be honest. um
No, it's that is the answer. It's more just, I guess, what does that mean word even mean for you? But it's nice to know that even after, successful years, it still happens every day. You just roll with it. And what's interesting, I could see your science backed mind of looking at it as an experiment, which I haven't heard before, because I guess most people I don't know don't have a science background, but that's such a great way to perceive it of like, this is just an experiment. We'll put it out there, see what rolls, make adjustments, which is really what everything is.
Yeah, and when you end up finding something that really works, you double down on it quickly, right? I think that's really important for us in marketing. We were early in the podcast game, so we started working with Spit and Chicklets, and then we were the first ever sponsor for the Call Her Daddy podcast. And once that first ad went live, and I saw results within 24, 48 hours, I was like, "Hey, I want to lock this in for the year. The results are amazing. Let's jump on it." And that way, we were the first ever brand to believe in that asset, which is now the biggest female podcast ever.
Ah,
So it's pretty insane. And like kind of top three or top five biggest podcasts ever. And in that foundational year of 2019, we had numerous ad spots, built a lot of our online customer base that way, especially for the female demo. And yeah, and you got to test. If I didn't test that out and say like, oh, then we wouldn't, maybe we're not even here as a company, right? So
when do you find you're most creative and you're receiving, are you pushing to find these next steps in your business, or are you more kind of receiving ideas on, oh, we could do this? Like, how does that growth come for you?
yeah, I mean, that's a tough question. I think the thing is like, because no 2 days are really the same,
Yeah.
sometimes the inspiration comes from travel, right? Or it comes from music. I love music. So I think like I'm the worst singer there probably is, but I have a profound appreciation for great artists and talent. I've made friends with some awesome producers and singer-songwriters over the years, and I truly admire what they do, and it's something that I could never do. But in but I gravitate towards music that's actually slightly different than my daily life. It's because it sparks more creativity. So yeah, I mean, there's no like sort of silver bullet for and where the creativity and the drivers for growth come from. But I think the important thing is just surround yourself with people who are doing things that are meaningful and have a lot of conversations.
Right.
Um, because that will first of all inspire you, that'll spark your own creativity, and then also you will learn from people who have done it, because oftentimes you don't need to reinvent the wheel. And when you need to innovate, but you don't need to start from scratch from the point where you're figuring out all these unknowns that are not true unknowns,
Mhm.
right? A lot of people think like, oh my god, this task is so daunting. Well, it's like, no, why don't you look at some of the stuff that's been done, and why don't you work backwards from there and see like, okay, maybe what's wrong with that, how can you provide value? So I think just experiencing a lot is really important, but at the same time exercise. And I know you can relate to this because you're very fit and always on it and always in the gym.
Love
But
that.
yeah, having a strong body and mind is critical to wanting to continue to grow. I think how you do anything is how you do everything. So being consistent in your life with exercise, diet, and like caring about things will translate very well into the business realm too, because that's your identity and that's your personality.
Yeah, and the commitment to just doing it, to making time. Interesting. Thank you. So, did you find, say, growing up, were you like, oh, do you always have an entrepreneurial mindset, or did you just sort of stumble upon, there's a problem, I should solve it, maybe I'll do this, or like how has that upbringing impacted your life?
Yeah, I mean, from the age of like 10, basically, I was into like little arbitrage here and there. So buying and selling things, buying something like I started with Live Strong bracelets.
Oh
They were
yeah.
only available down in the States for a while, and they were $1 each. And in the playgrounds, I had other kids willing to spend $3. So I would buy 100 of them and turn $1 into $3, so 100 into 300 really quickly. And I'm like, this is insane. And then kids started to wear them on both wrists, then doubled my customer base. I'm like, wow. um, I had more loonies and toonies in my little jar than I knew what to do with. I was like, oh, this has turned into a lot of money. So it started with like understanding that you know there's an arbitrage and there's an opportunity uh, to buy something and flip it. And then this there's been a progression over the last 22 years where you know a business when you're an adult is similar to that, but you need to operate at scale and have efficiency, and also probably provide a bit more value than just reselling something that someone else has made. So I think it was a great lesson and starting point. But then, as things progress, you add layers to them. I did that with like candy in elementary school. My locker was full of candy and I was selling candy. I'd buy it for a quarter, sell it for a dollar, that kind of thing. Um, and yeah, and then it was like iPhones and iPods, off Craigslist, and like refurbishing them, unlocking them, making them look better, and then selling them for more, that kind of thing. So it was a pretty cool journey, but I did take a little bit of a break from doing that kind of stuff through university, and because I thought I was going to pursue more of a career in engineering and like true science, but then I realized like, no, I can apply some of that scientific sort of understanding and background to a business or something that I want to create, right? So
Yeah, mix
yeah.
both aspects of it. So interesting. Thanks. That's funny to hear people's childhood. So you've always kind of had that personality from the beginning. What type of challenges would you say at the beginning? Did you find you had this idea and you started making it work and all is well in the world and it just worked? Or were there a lot of roadblocks where you thought, how do I get through this? What do I do? Where do I go?
Yeah, I mean, no, it was truly iterative. I went in with limited knowledge. So I actually brought in some industry experts and people who've done it before, that are familiar with regulatory compliance, whether it be in US or Canada, the two main markets we sell. And for the record, we only started selling in Canada actually about 8 or 9 months ago, because we got health, authorized to sell our hero product with Canada, because everything's subject to Health Canada approval. So we got that authorization last January, and then we had to put things into production in Canada. It took a few months, so we launched, I think, by May of last year. So as a Canadian company, we're fairly fresh in our own backyard. But yeah, I mean, more or less, I think you kind of jump in with that good product or what you perceive to be good and put it out there, and then have to iterate based on that. So it wasn't, I'd say, by no means was it ever smooth sailing. No, nor is it today smooth sailing. I think right now it's actually been it's the toughest it's been during the course of the business, probably by 10x. Everything's a bit harder right now. Consumers are spending less. There's no silver bullet with marketing. We had that podcasting avenue for a couple of years that was really good, and then also like margins are thinner, because if you're going into retail, distributors want money, retailers want money, and then you got to have enough left for yourself and your costs, and to run and keep your lights on and cover your expenses. So it's quite a battle, but I think if you're locked in and you're knowledgeable and where you're not knowledgeable, you bring in those people. It's about being resourceful and really consistent. I think.
Yeah, resourceful is a key word I've heard just over the years of how can you make it work? Because so you started in the States, that's where you've been for the majority of the time, and then now in the
Yep.
UK as well. Any other countries that I should know about so I can tell these people?
Yeah, I think the main focus for us is Canada and the US. Still, the US is like most of our business. Canada is growing. We'll be in a bunch of new stores. Like we're launching with Body Energy Club in a couple weeks, which should be fun. And then a lot more. But the UK, just a little bit of distribution. I don't want to spread us too thin, so it's just available online, more or less. And then we're going to hold off on other international markets until we've gone a bit deeper in Canada and the US. And then yeah, kind of go from there. But yeah, more just building it out in our backyard, I think, is really important, because there's a lot of opportunity.
No, it's amazing. There was that event you had at Kits, the amount of people that it felt like you know when you used to get those like fake messages, scammers, and they'd be like, "Is this you?" But I was in one of your videos that you guys made doing a cartwheel, and so many of my friends sent it to me and was like, "Is this you?" And then I looked, I was like, "Oh yeah, that actually was me. That's pretty funny." So that one, that your marketing's great though. I mean, it's a really fun perspective of just the way you go about it is a bit more human.
Yeah, for us, the nice thing is, and I appreciate you doing that. That was a blast. I love that you were able to make it that day. And we'll do another one when the weather gets better. But that's what it's all about, right? We want to bring people together. And if you're not doing that, then it's really you're just you're selling something with no personality, and it's just a product that sits on someone's shelf and they have no connection to it, and they don't know the people that make it. They don't care. Like that's what big consumer like CPG brands are about, right? Like the big players that own all the big brands that we see on shelf. That's why it pays to support local brands, small emerging brands, because first of all, it's very hard for them. Second of all, um, there's usually a good reason why they're making these products, and there's usually a family that you're supporting, or a number of families. Like one of the things that has come to me over the last few years, I'm responsible for payroll for my whole team every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And if we're not meeting our numbers and I can't pay them, then it's not just me that's not suffering, it's the rest of the team. So that responsibility is like, that's my number one thing. It doesn't keep me up at night, but it's my number one focus. It's like, hey, I need to continue to grow and excel. And, people want to earn more. The cost of living goes up. There's all these things, and you're like, you end up being responsible for all of it. So it's pretty wild, I'd say. But yeah, that human connection part is critical. I think bringing people together, embodying your brand and having it be more than just a catchphrase, having it be a way of life that people can relate to, will make everyone better.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no, I'm always so impressed when anyone has more than one employee. I'm so impressed by that because I know how much work goes into it of just employ like paying a salary for just one other person. Yet, some people they work for thousands of employees and I say, "Oh my God, that's so impressive." And they're like, "I don't know, is it?" But because I'm surrounded by entrepreneurs who are, you know, hustling on their own, and then if they have a few employees, great. But so I mean you've grown it quite huge in my mind, at least to be able to employ 6 people is amazing. Just to sustain that, harder said than done, but it's a progress. You're doing it, it's working.
No, I appreciate it. I think the interesting thing is a lot of people look at businesses, and they'll look at the social media page and see a few things that we're doing and say, "Oh my God, these guys are killing it." But there's like, it's like the iceberg, right? You see an iceberg from a mile away, and you see the top of it and what's sticking out of the water, but there's so much more underneath the water. And that's exactly what running a business in this day and age is like. We haven't raised any money. We haven't pulled any outside investment in. It's been bootstrapped. It's been built on a strong business model out of the gate. But well, that makes it even tougher because I don't have like a piggy bank to say, hey, let me just pull from this 100,000, 200 million, whatever, right? Rather, I'm like, wow, every decision's calculated. If we overspend here, then we and blow our budget and it doesn't return or whatever, then this impacts everyone and it makes it a lot harder to meet those goals. So, my advice for anyone who has friends who are running business, like even it costs a couple of dollars more, buy from them.
Right.
Um, buy from your friends. It's going to help them more than and you're probably going to get a great product out of it too. And it's just, but the problem is, the people, like, friends typically aren't your customer, which is the funny part. Um, because I don't know what it is about the consumer behavior and psychology, but people, it oftentimes doesn't end up being the case, right? That your best customers are not your best friends, right? Your
Yes.
best customers are oftentimes a couple degrees of separation away.
Yes. Well, it's kind of like any not any form of success, hopefully your close ones support you, but often for massive success, I find the people further away support you than the close ones. Like once the world is cheering you on, then everyone else kind of hops on. I don't know if you felt
Right,
that.
right. It's like, oh, I went to school with you. Like, how you doing? You messaged me 10 years later. Like, we haven't, it's like they see that's, and that's happened a couple times. Not that I have any profound success at all. We have a long way to go, but I've experienced that where someone's like, I'm like, well, where have you been the last 10 years? Yeah, nice to hear from you too. Hope you're doing
Yeah.
well. I mean, I definitely, and that kind of goes into like how I like to manage my, like, not manage my relationships, but maintain my relationships. I think, if you had a connection with someone um, so many years ago and you have all these things in common, check in with them periodically. It doesn't have to be every day or every week, but could be once a month, right? And you got to keep those connections alive. I think the human brain doesn't have the ability to maintain like more consistent, like weekly or daily names and connections, but you can still be deliberate and say monthly, quarterly, I'm going to check in with this person and see how they're doing. Oh, they started a business. Oh, how can I support? Right. We're here for people at the end of the day. People die of loneliness. They die in a sense that they develop disease and illness because they are lonely, right? And that stuff proliferates and sort of really accelerates because of loneliness. So I have relatives where that's been the case. So I think keeping in contact with everybody from acquaintances to friends, even if there's a physical distance, you're in the UK now, but touching base. And I appreciate you shooting me a message because you're a true testament of it, right? Like, let's touch base. We'd spend time in Vancouver and hang out, but then circumstances change. You have a new life environment, and you're very deliberate though, and that's like I applaud you and commend you on that because you'll be better for it.
Yeah.
It helps you, it helps me. Right.
Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate that. I do approach probably with the same perspective as you don't want to look at it. I do look at my social life as a goal. Like I used to have a social calendar because similar probably for you too. Like my focus usually is business related, so it's that comes first. What's my work? What am I working towards? And then there was a time when I thought, oh, but if I have all this success and no friends, like then what? That I can't take any of my friends away if I don't have any of them. So I can't quite build that as fast. I got to balance it all. So I would have my calendar and I'd have an orange highlighter and I'd map out like who are the 4 friends I'm gonna check in with this month just to say hello and then cycle it through. So I do think it is like you're saying, be deliberate of maintaining your friendships, relationships. Okay, last
100%.
question for you though. You touched a little bit on it already for your advice, but talking to somebody younger, older, whatever age, somebody wanting to start their business, what advice would you give to them? Or do you have a mantra that you say to yourself or both?
Yeah. 100%. So it's probably tougher, like in my professional career, it's now is probably the toughest time to start anything because everything's expensive. The cost of capital, and if you're to raise money or just money is expensive, right? So and it's scarce. So I would say if you're going to start a business, do something you really give a damn about. Solve a problem that's really close to home. It's either you or someone close to you that you're solving the problem for, because you need to establish consistency with the business, similar to going to the gym 7 days a week. You'd actually need to go to the gym as in work on your business 10 days a week. And hey, guess what? There's only 7 days in a week, right? So my point is, do something you really give a damn about, because if you do something that's a copycat or an imitation of someone else and you're thinking you're going to make a quick buck, that's not how it works.
Right.
Oftentimes that's like I'd say 99% of the time that is not how it works. And if you find the 1%, it's probably very short-lived, right? So do something you give a damn about, put your best foot forward, and be consistent. That's key. And then go out there and talk to people who have done it before. If you're going to be in a consumer focused industry, like business to consumer, B2C business, talk to someone who's done it in a similar industry. You know, I tell you, I've been having great conversations with someone local who started an amazing supplement company. He sold it and bought it back and is now running it again himself and scaling it up. And he's 15, 20 years my senior, but he's willing to chat with me and share his learnings, and I'm grateful for his time and what he's been able, first of all, I admire what he's accomplished, but talk to the people who've done it before, because oftentimes, you know, they're not gatekeepers to the success, because success isn't overnight, right? It's usually a 10-year overnight success story.
Exactly.
um and don't be afraid to share your ideas with others, because the big thing is, like, people like, I have this idea for a company I want to start, but if I share it with other people, they'll copy me.
Yeah.
Well, what did I just say? If you copy someone, you're not gonna, like, the amount of copycats within my network, or 1 degree of separation,
Mm,
it has been hilarious. And I'll tell you one thing, not one of them are still here today.
right.
So
It's
I embrace competition, to be honest, because I think if you're going to do something right, it brings more awareness to the category. But yeah, share your ideas. Like, it could be the worst idea in the world, and then you get some feedback that helps you pivot and do something more meaningful, and you save so much time. Don't ever ask someone to sign an NDA to have a conversation with you, especially if they're your friend or an acquaintance, because that's really off-putting. And I've had people do that before. And I'm like, hey man, like, I'm not going to steal your idea. I'm also not going to sign this NDA because I don't think you're ready for to share it with anyone, because you're probably not far along enough, and you're not open to constructive criticism or feedback. So yeah, I went on a little rant there,
no,
but
no, that's what it's for. It's share your wisdom, because I don't realize all the knowledge and wisdom that I hear, because I've luckily grown up in such an environment filled with just everyone around me really is quite successful or just knowledgeable. So I'm
right.
constantly surrounded by that. And the more I explore the world, I'm like, oh, you didn't grow up listening to all of these like inspiring messages every day. So that's why I wanted to share, give this outlet of, for people to hear what you have to say, because it's not easy to go and build a business by yourself. It's tough. So it's no, it's appreciated, your knowledge. Hmm.
We'll appreciate your time, and this conversation, it means the world.
Yes. One last thing. Is there a quote you live by, or one quote that means something to you?
um yeah, well, it's kind of a little bit, there's 3 things you need to do in a day to have a full day. You need to laugh, think, and cry. So you do those 3 things, you'll have a full day. And I'm all about having full days. It doesn't have to be tears of sadness or sorrow. It can be tears of joy, but do something that moves your emotions.
Yes.
Do something that really makes you think, and do something that makes you laugh, and then you're really living. So that's what it's all about.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nishal. I appreciate your time today and your
Of
morning.
course. Yeah,
Um,
no, I appreciate you making the time and making this happen.
so quickly, how can people buy your product?
Oh yeah, little shameless plug here, but I
Yeah.
did, it'll help. It'll help everyone. You just go to you just Google No Days Wasted. NoDaysWasted.co is our website. In the US and Canada, we're available on Amazon.ca and Amazon.com. If you buy, leave a review. I'd appreciate you. And also, we're in a handful of retailers. So there's a store locator on our website where you could see the retailer closest to you. So tons of different ways. If you buy directly from our website, feel free to use my code NISH20, NISH20, and it'll get you 20% off. But yeah, appreciate all the support from everyone. And if you have any feedback on our products, I would love to hear it too.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah.